Spoilers for Season 3 of Only Murders in the Building. If you haven't seen all 3 seasons, pause this video, run exactly like a Nova Scotian constable would run, then come back and watch. Sazz came into the party at Oliver's with a case of old Belgian lager. You know murder mysteries. Who's the old Belgian? Hercule Poirot! The master detective of the whodunit. Sazz goes into Charles's apartment and is shot. Her bloody finger scrawls across the floor. In one of Hercule Poirot's famous cases, the old Belgian finds a dead woman from a gunshot with a letter written in blood next to the body. What will be written in blood next to Sazz's body in Season 4? I would guess the letter J. J for Jan? J for Joy? What message will Sazz have left the podcast trio? At the end of this podcast, after your feedback, we'll dive into the Sazz mystery and what we want to see in Season 4. And a question for you. Did Charles post that selfie with him and Sazz? Let's solve Only Murders in the Building, Season 3, Episode 10. Opening night! Charles, Mabel, and Oliver race to entrap the killer on opening night. As the musical thrills its Broadway audience, the trio brave further twists and turns from behind, above, and all around the stage. We broke down each episode for clues, suspects, and red herrings on our hunt to learn who killed Ben Glenroy, and we did pretty well. Later on, we're going to review what we got right, what we got wrong. Plus, we're going to look and see if we can discover the plot of Death Rattle Dazzle based on this final episode. Use the timestamps below to jump to the topic that you want to hear about and skip past stuff you don't want to hear. There's been so much fun stuff created for Season 3. Playbill.com came out and published Maxine's original review of Death Rattle. This is brilliant. There's a link to it down in the show notes. I want to read a bit of it just because it's so good. This is the beginning of Maxine's review. Thunder crashes, the lighthouse lantern spins, and a body lies crumpled on the rocks. A body, dear reader, that I sincerely wished was my own. If it had been, then I would have been spared from the cruelty of sitting through Oliver Putnam's 3-hour desperate cry for help. Bland, bleak, impossibly, indescribably boring. Death Rattle is far too perfect a name for a show that is essentially one long, shaky, exceptionally painful, dying breath. It is really hilarious. Once again, check out the link down below. If you're heartbroken that this Let's Solve season is over, know that we've done a couple of these. Obviously, all 3 seasons of Only Murders in the Building. We also did a really fun show called Magpie Murders. It's only 6 episodes long. There are actually multiple mysteries in Magpie Murders, and you can solve them all. It is fairly clued. And no, they're currently filming the second series, Moonflower Murders, as we speak. And while we did not cover the first season of The After Party, it's a very funny comedy murder mystery that you can solve. And we did cover The After Party Season 2. And we solved that, but we give you plenty of warning so you can watch all our videos and know that you won't be spoiled unless you go to the very end on a certain video. Both of those shows, Magpie Murders and The After Party, are fairly clued. You can solve them. Check them out and watch our video as a fun follow along with it. Our next Let's Solve videos should be in November of 2023 with a new show titled A Murder at the End of the World. Read the description of this show and it sounds like another variation of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, but maybe with some trippy Matrix-like twist to it. Honestly though, note we're going to wait and watch the first episode and make sure it's a whodunit before we 100% commit. But know that it's going to be on Hulu here in the United States and Disney Plus all around the world and Star if you have that, Star Plus. So if you're able to watch Only Murders in the Building, you should be able to watch A Murder at the End of the World coming up in November of 2023. All right, let's get to those double E's, the Easter eggs in the opening credits. Raise the curtains, Arconia, it's opening night. Let's look at what we got right in Only Murders in the Building Season 3. And again, I think we did really well. We mentioned the producer's theory in our video on episode 2. Now, admittedly, that's not really solving anything. It was more like an educated guess. But I imagine, like you, our eyes were on the producers very early. We'll talk more about educated guesses in a bit, but let's keep celebrating what we got correct. After episode 3, we put it in our video. We knew Ben was talking to Cookies. In episode 4, we knew Ben wrote the effing pig message on his mirror. After episode 5, we talked about Loretta's scrapbook really being about Dickie and how that probably meant she was Dickie's mother. After episode 6, we were like, well, maybe Maxine's review was shredded in the paper shredder in KT's office. Heck, in episode 1, we talked about a mother trying to protect her child. And that's what Donna really was, right? As great as we should feel for solving this stuff, we have to celebrate the show for giving us fair play clues, giving us the ability to solve these things. And listeners, look at this. We put out this poll, I believe after episode 2, of Who Killed Ben Glenroy on our YouTube community page. Look at these results. Now, other suspects, which would have included, for example, Dickie, came in at number 1 with 31% of the votes. But look at this, Donna and Cliff, 29%. That's the second option. They're above Tobert. They're above Loretta. Incredible. You guys do a great job. Okay, but now let's get into the mystery of who pushed Ben down the elevator shaft. This is where solving and educated guesses are really two peas in a pod. As we mentioned last week, any of the suspects could have done it, maybe outside of perhaps Dickie, who did appear to have an alibi backed up by video evidence of where he was when Ben died. Did anyone notice the lipstick marks on the hanky? If so, write down and let us know. I received a bit of feedback that thought the hanky would prove that Donna used Joy's lipstick. However, I did not have any feedback, nor did I see any on like Reddit or anywhere, that someone said, ooh, the lipstick is on the hanky. Did anybody see it? And that it would prove Donna and Cliff. I think it's a brilliant idea for a clue, but if nobody put it together anywhere, maybe it was too obfuscated. And the mystery, at times it can frustrate you. In this episode, episode 10, Mabel says to Cliff, oh yeah, your mother did the one for the lips, one for the heart thing the night that Ben died. Yet, we never saw that in the episode where Ben died. Now listeners, I do wonder, did you pick up that I kind of thought Cliff was the killer for pretty much all the season? It was partially the producer's theory, but also this image which the show put on their Instagram back that first weekend that season 3 premiered. It just seems suspicious to have two other high suspects, Dickie and Tobert, smiling and happy in what obviously looked like a shot from the end of the season. I did put this image in my video on episode 3, and I even left a comment on YouTube to see if anybody would pick up on it, the way I did. Meaning that if Tobert and Dickie are happy and smiling in the final episode, there's no way either of them are the killers. And that's partially why maybe I didn't go as deep into Tobert and Dickie as I wanted to. I wanted Dickie to be it. I wanted them to fool me and make Dickie the killer. This image always kind of kept me hesitant. But hey, I wasn't the only one. I have so much feedback from people suspecting Cliff back in episode 1, episode 2, throughout the season. Don't get me wrong, I love this season. So this is just a small nitpick. I wish these mysteries had more tangible evidence and facts to solve. Again, in fact, let's bring in the lawyer. Lawyer, get in here. Defend Cliff against these charges. Your Honor, the only physical evidence against my client is this hanky. The prosecution says that this hanky has my client's DNA on it. But do you know how many people this hanky went through? If it was on Ben's body, which is still conjecture, then you have this woman Uma, then you have Dickie, then you have Loretta, then you have the podcast 3 all touching it. Who knows how many people have touched this hanky? Why does my client's mother's lips on this hanky prove anything about my client's guilt? He's not guilty. There's no hard evidence. Oh, Cliff confessed? Ah, drats. Okay. These last couple of weeks I've said, if we get to 6,000 subscribers on YouTube, I'll do a full karaoke version of which of the Pickwick Triplets did it. And I did record it. It's just we haven't yet hit 6,000 subscribers. However, we're still about 300 subscribers short of 6,000. So hey, if you subscribe, I promise once we cross over 6,000, I'll release this really poorly sung version of which of the Pickwick Triplets did it. You'll get to see if I messed up or if I made it through perfectly. If I stumbled, how many takes did it do? Hopefully, you'll enjoy this tongue-twisting version when I release it when we get 6,000 subscribers. What we got wrong. We did zoom in our episode 2 video. We did zoom in and see that Loretta had notes on her fridge, Merry Christmas, Aunt Loretta. Whoever is Loretta's niece or nephew, we never found that out. It wasn't important. I guess it was a red herring. So the fact that we focused it and we put it in our video thumbnail, we definitely got that wrong. Also, the Ben twin theory. Now, we were great in that we noticed that his tattoos were constantly shifting and didn't seem to be consistent, but I suppose you would say continuity on tattoos can be tricky, and we should not have focused quite as much on the tattoo continuity as we did. And listeners, a lot of you said, hey, stop focusing on this twin theory, and you guys were right. Okay, let's see if we can solve Death Rattle Dazzle, and admittedly, this is easy to solve, based on episode 10. The constable sings his Which of the Pickwick Triplets Did It song, and he ends the song by pointing at somebody out a door that the audience can't see. Constable saying, I pick you as the killer. What probably happens next in the play? The character that he's pointing at, the detective, probably kills the constable. Uma said the constable died in the second act, so probably the detective killed him. Then, to protect the child from their abusive father, who must have killed the mother, the parental figure of the nanny pushes the detective from the lighthouse down onto the rocks. So the song is correct. None of the Pickwick triplets did it. I'm sure we still haven't solved all the mysteries of this show, but certainly the most confusing thing is that the director's assistant, Howard, ran onto the stage during the curtain call, and he went to the front line of actors with the stars and with the guilty producers rather than hanging back with the ensemble. Go, Howard, get the spotlight. Now let's look at your feedback on Twitter, and our Twitter handle is @PHQ, the word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters. Chris Perry, who's at Mr. C.A. Perry, wrote, I just saw the finale and wow, Only Murders in the Building never disappoints. Now we know who our victim is or is supposed to be for season 4. Every question in season 3 gets answered and a new question arises. Get Mike, who's on Twitter at GetMikeDow, wrote, okay, my theory on the finale of Only Murders in the Building was correct, but that ending, holy shee. Please tell me we're going to see the return of Jan in season 4. On Facebook, Megan wrote, overall, I didn't like the mystery component, despite liking the last 4 episodes or so. I thought there was a lot of evidence for us, the audience, to make inferences as to who did it, but not really a ton of evidence for the characters to realize who did it until the 9th episode. Plus, Donna and Cliff kissing as they're arrested felt like a personal attack. Be strong, Megan, be strong. On Instagram, we had great feedback all season long from people like Mark and Alex. Alex wrote, I just finished it, I liked it, Cliff being the killer made sense. I just wish he had gotten a focus episode that he could have narrated and been in the season a little bit more, just generally, so that it could be further developed and he could be taken seriously as a killer. For much of the season, it felt like he was overshadowed by his mother and he was played for laughs a few too many times on how uncomfortably close he and his mother were. I think it was a satisfying season, but what matters is your opinion. Go down in the chat and let me know. Let's get to season 4, and before we even start talking about theories and how we should approach this, there's a new interview in the website Deadline with co-creator John Hoffman. Hoffman says, killing Sazz is a big swing, and there's more to come. Dun dun dun, oh no. Deadline asked him, did the killer or killers know they were killing Sazz, or did they actually confuse her for Charles Hayden Savage? Hoffman responds, well, that's the question of the day. That's what excited me in many ways because it brought up many questions that we could explore in a new season. It feels like what we hope to do is always sort of shift the narrative in a way that feels particularly potent and personal, and it felt a bit fresh. The final thing, Deadline asked him about all the hints towards our characters going to Los Angeles. Hoffman said, we're going to see if there's definitely a touch of Los Angeles in small doses. We'll see. That is a wish because they're continuations. It's not like we put a final period on the interpersonal relationships that were so beautifully built across season 3. All right, let's circle back to did the killer or killers know they were killing Sazz or Charles Hayden Savage? In episode 5, Sazz questions Charles and asks him if he was the intended victim and not Ben Glenroy. She says she's been hearing things out there, and she mentions a ham radio. I think the most important thing to think about is Charles takes a selfie of himself and Sazz that night. Did Charles post it anywhere on social media, so therefore the shooter would know that Sazz and Charles looked identical, and that therefore I can kill Sazz this way? Another thing we need to think about is Sazz says as she comes in, she made copies of everyone's keys. Are those keys how the shooter got into a different Arconia apartment and shot Sazz? What do you think? Do you think the shooter purposely shot Sazz? Or do you think they were aiming for Charles and somehow this is a continuation of the sandbags falling on Charles's head? Write down in the comments and let us know. I think the killer has to be a new character we haven't met yet. It's not going to be Joy, it's not going to be Howard, it's not going to be anybody in the building. To me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Give me your feedback, Arconiacs, and we'll talk to you next time in a Let's Solve series in November of 2023 with a murder at the end of the world.